We are picking up the last skinny line on Mem Hey Amud Aleph, Itmar. So again, right now this parak is talking about the halachos of benching. So it's going into, the Mishnah started by talking about when three people are eating together that they have to form a zimun, which a zimun is not benching. A zimun is where they go through the process of saying Rabosai Nevarech, and they do that the prayer before benching, and then they bench together. So now the Gemara is going to ask the question about what happens. We know that the Mishnah was talking about three people. What happens if you have two people that were eating together? Do they also make a zimun or do they not make a zimun? So Gemara says that the two dots, last skinny line. Itmar, Shnaim she'achlu ka'achas. If you have two people that were eating bread together, Pligi Rav Rabbi Yochanan, so Rav and Rabbi Yochanan have an argument whether or not they're able to make a zimun or not. Chad Amar imratzul zamin mizanmin. One says if they want to make the zimun, they're able to. V'chad Amar imratzul zamin em mizanmin. If they want to make the zimun, they're not able to. So now the Gemara is going to go through the next few lines. Is going to go through trying to figure out A, if two people could make a zimun, and B, is going to try to find out who is it that said what. The Gemara doesn't know who said if two could do it or could not do it, so that the Gemara is going to try to figure out. So the Gemara says, Tanam, we learned in our Mishnah here at the beginning of the parak, if you have three people that ate together, then they have to make a zimun. So the Gemara says, from what do you learn from there? It's mashma, it implies shlosha in, shnayim lo, that only if three people ate together, then they make a zimun. But if two people ate together, they would not make a zimun. So that would seem to show that two people eating together do not make the zimun. So Gemara answers, that's not a proof. Hasam chova hacharishus. That over there in the Mishnah is talking about when do you have an obligation to make a zimun. So if you have three people eating together, there's an obligation to do it. They don't have the option of saying we don't want to do it. They're obligated to do it. They have to make the zimun. If two people are eating together, then it's possible that two people still may be able to make a zimun, but they're not obligated to do it. So we don't have a proof one way or the other. Gemara then says, Tashma, we learned in another brisa. If you have three people who are eating together, they have to make a zimun. And they're not allowed to go their separate ways and each one make their own bracha and bench by themselves, because that's going to break up the zimun. So again, the Gemara asks the same question as before. It implies shlosha in, that if you have three people eating together, then they're not allowed to separate and bench on their own. Shnayim lo, but if you have two people that are eating together, then it wouldn't be a problem if they wanted to separate. So you see from there that if two people eat together, they don't make a zimun, they would not be able to get together. Gemara answer Shani Hasam there too. It's also different. The kavalahu b'chava meikara, because over there, when you have three people that started eating together, then there's already an obligation on them. They have set up a. I'm sorry, I said the first part wrong. The first part was saying that if three people ate together, then they have to make a zimun. Then they're not able to separate, which implies that two people could separate, which means that they can't make a zimun. So Gemara answers that when you have three people that were eating together, as we said, that's an obligation on them to do it. Once they're obligated, then they don't have the option of breaking off separately to each bench on their own. But when you have two people eating together, it's possible, the Gemara is saying right now, that they would still be able to make a zimun together. But it's only if they want to. It's not an obligation. It's only they could if they want to. So therefore you can't bring a proof from here, because it's possible that two people eating together really could make a zimun, but there's not an obligation to do it. So again, we don't have a proof one way or the other what it is. The next Gemara says, trying to figure out whether or not two people could do it. Tashma, Hasham Shahaya Mishamish al Shanaim. If you have the waiter that was serving two people, so imagine you're sitting in a restaurant and you have your waiter is helping you serve. He's serving you your food. So if two people are eating together, then the waiter is able to pull up a chair and join them, and he's able to eat the meal together with them. But if he was serving on three people, he's not able to join together with them only if they gave him permission to eat with them. Which, again, so the proof is that if it's two people together, it must be that two people would want the waiter to join them, because if the waiter joins them, then they have an obligation to make a zimun. But if it's three people, then he can't sit and join. He can't pull up a chair and join them, because they already have an obligation for a zimun. So you see from there that two people cannot make a zimun, because if two people could make a zimun, they wouldn't want this guy interrupting their business lunch that's going on, just because they would now have an obligation to do a zimun together. So you have a proof from there that shows that two people who eat together do not make the zimun. So Gemara answers, no, again, it's not a proof. Shani Hasam, turning to Mem Hey Amud Beis, but that the reason why they want to have the two people who are eating together, the Gemara is saying really would be able to make a zimun together. But it's gadol hametzuva miyosa mishain. What Rashi says at the top, the gadol hametzuva miyosa, that someone who's commanded to do something gets more reward than someone who's not commanded to do something. So if the two people are eating together, they have the right to make a zimun, but they don't have the obligation to do the zimun. If the waiter joins them, then they now have an obligation to do it. So for them, it's going to be worth more. The reward for doing a mitzvah that you're commanded to do is greater if they have the waiter join them. So that's why we say that if the two people are eating together, then the waiter can join them, because now they would be setting up a chiyuv, an obligation to make the zimun, as opposed to if it was just the two of them, that they would have the right to do it, but they wouldn't have an obligation to do it. Okay, Gemara the next Gemara says, Tashma, Nashim Mizanus Atzmim, women are able to make a zimun by themselves. Again, in the Mishnah had said that the Mishnah had said on Amud Aleph, it said that Nashim Avadim Ktanim Eimizanolin, that you don't make a zimun with them, that they're not able to do it with the men. But this price is saying now, Tashma, Nashim Mizanus Atzman, women are able to make their own zimun by themselves. Vavadim Mizanul Atzman, and servants are able to, slaves are able to make a zimun by themselves. Nashim Avadim Ktanim, but if you have the three of them, Imratzul Zamin Emizamin, if they wanted to combine, then they're not able to join together to make a zimun. If they want to do together, they're not able to make a zimun, which the Gemara is going to explain why they're not able to do it. Now the Gemara asks, V'hamei nashi kitrei gari damyan. 100 women are equal to 2 men. Okay, now you just got to be careful. Again, don't go home and say this to anyone, okay? So what the Gemara is saying is that 100 women are equal to 2 men. Rashi says that just like 100 women don't have an obligation to make a zimun, so too 2 men don't have an obligation to make a zimun. So you see from here is a proof that if 2 men ate together, that they do not make a zimun. And we learned that the women can make a zimun by themselves, and the slaves can make a zimun by themselves, which means that it's just optional. I'm sorry. So from here you see that the men have an option if they wanted to, just like the women are able to make a zimun by themselves. So to the men, 2 men together would also be able to make a zimun by themselves. So it would seem from here you have a proof that they could make a zimun. So Gemara answers no, it's not a raya. Shani Hasim over there, it's different when you have the women eating together, the ikadeus, because you have mind. Deos means minds. You have minds eating together. And remember, the Gemara on Amud Aleph had learned out from 2 different psukim the possibility that of why you're supposed to bench with the zimun. One was either because the pasuk says Kishem Hashem Ekra Havagodel Elokeinu, or because the other pasuk said Gadol Hashem Iti Unaramashim Yachtav. So the idea was that you wanted to have this number of 3. Remember, we learned that you had to have a minimum of 3 in order to make a zimun. So you saw that you have 3. So if you have 100 women, you have deus, you have the minds are there. Okay, so therefore that's why they're able to make a zimun. But 2 men, on the other hand, they don't meet that requirement that we learned from the psukim, that you have to have a minimum of 3. So therefore that's why 100 women would be able to make a zimun together. Really, it's 3 women. I mean, really, once you have 3 women, you'd be able to make a zimun together, but 2 men would not be able to make a zimun together. Gemara asks, that we said in the second half of the brayso, we said that if nashim and avadim are not able to combine together to make a zimun, amai lo, why can't they do it? They have the numbers. We just said before that they could. So Gemara answers says nothing to do with the right to make a zimun or not. The reason why they don't combine together to make a zimun, the reason why, Shani Hasim, it's different, Mishum Pritzusa. Rashi says that we're worried about Pritzus. We're afraid that Avadim they're not the most moral people in the world, so we're afraid that either the servants are either going to be having relations with the women or they're going to be having relations with the children. So that's why we don't want them combining together. If they're getting together for activities, we're afraid it's going to lead to some sort of immoral activity, so that's why they're not able to combine together. But really, women by themselves are able to make a zimun, and avadim by themselves are able to make a zimun also, as long as they would have a minimum of 3 people. But again, we haven't brought a proof one way or another yet which way it goes, but it seems that for 2 right now, they would not make a zimun. Okay, so the Gemara was trying to figure out now, remember we said that Rav and Rabbi Yochanan were arguing whether or not you were able to make a zimun or not, so the Gemara is trying to figure out who is it that said what. Tistayim de Rav de Amar Imratzul Zamin Emizam. Let's bring a proof that shows that if 2 men got together and they want to make a zimun, so let's say that it was Rav that said that they're not able to do it. The Amar Rav Dimi Bar Yosef Amar Rav, The Rav Dimi Rabbi Yosef said in the name of Rav, Shlosha sha'achlu ka'achas, you have three people that were eating together, Yatsa ech mehem l'shuks, and you have three people that are sitting together at a table. And then one of them got up, he finished eating, and he started leaving. So they said, whoa, wait a second. Karlo, they called out to him and they said, and they said that they need him to join in the Zimun, so he can't leave yet. So Gemara says, time of the Karan-Lo, the reason why we make a Zimun is because they called out to him and they stopped him from leaving. So therefore, they still had the minimum of three people together. But, hello, Karan-Lo, but if they would not have called out to him, then he would not be able to make a Zimun, and this was in the name of Rav. So you see from here that Rav must be the one that says that if you have two people, they're not able to make a Zimun together. So Gemara answers that's not a proof. Shani Hasam the ikfulahu b'chava meikar. The reason why they're able to, the reason why we say that that they're able to do it is because over there they have to call out for, not that two people don't make a zimun, but like we said before, when three people join together to start with and one of them leaves, he's breaking up the obligatory aspect of doing a zimun. It's possible that you might still say that two people have the right or the option of making a zimun, but they're not obligated to do it. So therefore, because they started with a group of three, they were sitting down at a table, and then one of them got up to leave, he was breaking up the obligatory parts of them having to make a zimun, so that's why they would call him to come back. But really, it's possible that you could say that when two people were eating alone in the first place, possibly you could say that Rav may say that really they could still make a zimun. So Gemara says, okay, let's bring another proof then. Let's bring a proof that it was Rabbi Yochanan that said that if two people get together to eat, they're not able to make a zimun. If you have two people who are eating together, one of them is able to be motzei his friend with his benching. So again, remember, nowadays things are very different because now we have sidurim, and now because of the way that the school system works, so a lot more people are able to read fluently. They're able to pick up a siddur, they're able to read from the siddur, and they're able to figure out what it is. Back in the days of the Gemara, they didn't have printed Gemara. They didn't have anything printed. Everything was done by heart. So the way that they would do it is that one person who had memorized the benching, let's say, would be motzi other people. They would honor him with benching, and he would say the bracha out loud, and everyone would listen and answer amen after he would make the bracha. So that's the way that they would do benching back in those days. So if you have two people eating together, one of them could be motzei his friend with benching by listening to his friend and answering amen. And we learned, and when we were learning this, we said, "My kamash, what's the big chiddush about that? We already know that." Tanina, we learned in the brisa, "Shama v'lo ana yatsa," that if a person was listening to his friend and make a bracha, and he didn't answer, he didn't say anything to interrupt it, then he's going to be yotzi schiyuv to bench. To say that we don't have any zimun, that they're not able to make the zimun bracha between them. So you see that by listening, we learned in this other brisa that by listening to one person to another, he's able to fulfill his obligation to bench. So why does the Gemara have to say it over here? Elamai, the reason why it's saying this time, it must be that, again, the reason why it's saying it here is to tell you that if you have two people that are doing it together, then they don't join in a zimun. Because if two people were together, then we wouldn't say that one should exempt his friend from benching by doing it for him. We would say that they should say, Rabbosayin Avarech, let's bench together. But the fact that we said that one person can be motzei his friend by the friend listening to him, it must be that Rabbi Yochanan is the one that said that two people do not join together in a zimun. So Gemara questions this. Amarle Rava bar Rav Huna, the Rabbanon who came from the west, which is meaning they came from Eretz Yisrael, said that if two people want to bench together, they're able to. It must be that who was the leader of Eretz Yisrael at that time was Rabbi Yochanan. And if they just came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel and they said, hey, the halacha is that if two people want to join together, then they're allowed to do it. So then that would seem that Rabbi Yochanan holds that two people could make a zimun together. So my answer is no. The Shmielu may Rav Mekayim Denachas Bavel. They heard it from Rav, who before he came down to Bavel, he had heard it that was halacha, but really Rabbi Yochanan himself will hold that two people coming together are not able to make a zimun. The next one says Gufa. Rav Dimi bar Yosef Rav. If you have three people that ate together, and again, this is the Gemara we just quoted before, and one of them went out. Okay, he left the table. So Karan lo mizamna love, so they're able to call him back, and they're able to tell him that they want to bench. Okay, so again, the two people are sitting at the table. The other guy went out into, he's already out into the plaza center over there, and they call out to him, and he's able to bench. Amar Abai, and Abai says on that, "V'hu dekar leva ani." The only time that we say that works, that if three people are eating together, two of them call out to the third one, and then they can make the zimun, is only if when they call out to the third guy, he's able to hear them. But if, let's say, they're eating in, like at some cafe in Manhattan, and the two of them are eating right outside, and then he crosses over into wherever, into the middle, and you got people walking by, and you have traffic, you're not able to hear anything, that's not going to work. Amar Zutra, v'lo amar nel b'shlosh. That's only talking about if you had three people that ate together. Aval basara ad denesi. But if you had 10 people eating together, you have to wait until he comes back, because we haven't gone through yet. The Gemara is going to talk about that. When we say that you do a zimun, the way it works is you start by saying Rabbi Sain of Areich. You say Hishem Hashem Barach Me'atav Olam Berachos da 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 da. And now if you have three people eating together, you say Nevarech Elokein Nevarech Shachanu Mishalo. If you have 10 people together, you say Nivarech Elokeinu Shachanu Mishalo. You say Hashem's name. So if you have 9 people eating, if you have 10 people eating together, one of them goes out into the marketplace, okay, he goes out into the center plaza, and they want to bench, and they want to be able to say Nivarech Elokeinu Shachanu Mishalo, so they have to make sure that he comes back. It's not enough that he hears them from over in the plaza, he has to come back and join up with the group again in order to answer. Gemara says, Maskal Ravashi asked on this, Adarabba, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to go the other way. Tisha near Kasara. If you have 9 people, right? If let's say you see a group of people together, you're not sure it's 9 or 10 people. Someone tells you there's 10 people there. Maybe there's only 9, but it looks like 10. Okay, so it's not evident right away when you're looking at it. They don't have 9, that you don't have 10 people there. But Shnaim Einir Kashlosh. But if you only have 2 people, it doesn't, like let's say last Thursday night when we were giving the shir. If you only have 2 people, so then it doesn't look like 3 people. It's very easy to discern how many people there are. So why do we say that if you have 2 people, if you have 3 people and one leaves, that he could just answer from far away, and that's going to be enough, as opposed to if you have 9 people, if you have 10 people and one leaves, that we say they have to come back and join. It looks like it's 10 people anyway, and as long as he's able to hear, why can't he answer from when he's standing, further away from the rest of the group? So Gemara says, "V'hilchasa kamar zutra." My time, the halacha is like Marzutra, that you have to wait until this 10th person comes back. My time, why? Kivan deboy lad kure shem shemayim orach abatzim asar alav orachar. Because since they're saying the Shem Hashem, again they're saying Nevarech Elokeinu Shechanu Mishalo, so it's not appropriate to have that. You have 9 people davening in a room and they're saying Kaddish and one guy's walking out the door. It doesn't look nice. It's not the right thing to do when you're saying Hashem's name. So it's better if you have 10 people eat together. One of them starts walking away and they say, "Hey, wait a second, we got a bench." Let him come back into the room so that he could join with the rest of the group. And then when he joins with the rest of the group, then you could say Nevarech Elokeinu Shechanu Mishalo, as opposed to, again, if let's say you're eating with 3 of you eating together, and one of them walks away. So as long as he can hear you, he doesn't have to come back to the table. It's enough to answer from wherever he's standing. Okay, we will stop here.